March 3rd, 1956, 2:47 a.m. Salvatore "Solly" Brenner was staring at the wreckage of his jewelry shop on Mulberry Street when he finally understood the difference between stealing from a businessman and stealing from Albert Anastasia. The entire storefront was gone, not damaged, gone. The explosion had been so precise, so calculated, that his shop looked like a mouth with its front teeth. And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Knocked out. The buildings on either side stood untouched. The apartments above were intact. But Solly's jewelry exchange, the place where he'd worked for 23 years, was now a smoking crater. The firefighters said it was professional, military-grade explosive, shaped charge designed to destroy one specific target without collateral damage. The kind of thing you couldn't buy at a hardware store, the kind of thing that cost serious money, the kind of thing Albert Anastasia could afford. Solly's hands were shaking as he watched the smoke rise into the pre-dawn sky. 6 weeks ago, he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. He'd looked at $47,000 worth of Albert Anastasia's gold sitting on his workbench and thought, just for a moment, that he could get away with it. To understand what happened that night on Mulberry Street, you need to understand who Salvatore Brenner was in 1956. He wasn't a criminal. He was a jeweler, third generation, learned the trade from his father, who learned it from his grandfather in Prague. Solly had a legitimate business. He bought gold, melted it down, crafted it into jewelry, sold it to customers who paid in cash. He had a wife, 2 daughters, a mortgage on a house in Bensonhurst. He was respected in his community, trusted. He was also drowning in debt. His youngest daughter, Rebecca, needed surgery for a heart condition. The doctors at Mount Sinai wanted $15,000 up front. His wife's mother was in a nursing home that cost $400 a month. His shop's rent had gone up. His suppliers were demanding faster payment. By January 1956, Solly owed $23,000 to various creditors, and he had maybe $3,000 in the bank. That's when Albert Anastasia walked into his shop. January 18th, 1956. It was a Wednesday afternoon, slow day. Solly was in the back workshop when he heard the bell above his door. He walked out front and froze. He'd never met Albert Anastasia in person, but he knew the face. Everyone in Little Italy knew that face. Lord High Executioner of the mob, the man who ran Murder Incorporated, the man who'd personally killed dozens of people and ordered the deaths of hundreds more. Anastasia wasn't alone. He had 2 men with him, big guys wearing overcoats despite the mild weather, the kind of overcoats that hide guns. "You Solly Brenner?" Anastasia's voice was surprisingly soft, almost gentle. "Yes, sir. How can I help you?" "I need some work done, custom pieces." "You do custom work?" "Of course. What did you have in mind?" Anastasia pulled a leather bag from his coat and set it on the counter. The bag was heavy. It made a solid thunk when it hit the glass. "I got gold here. Old jewelry, coins, some bullion. I want it melted down and recast. I want 6 matching rings, 3 bracelets, 2 necklaces, all 18 karat, all top quality. Can you do that?" Solly opened the bag. Inside were gold chains, vintage coins, pocket watch cases, and small bars of pure gold. He'd been in the business long enough to estimate weight by sight. This was at least 850 grams, maybe more. At current gold prices, this was $47,000 worth of raw material. "I can do that," Solly said, trying to keep his voice steady. "How long?" 3 weeks, maybe 4 if the designs are complicated." 3 weeks, Anastasia said flatly. "I'll send someone to pick them up February 8th. You'll have them ready." It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir." Anastasia turned to leave, then stopped. "Solly, you seem like a smart man, honest businessman. So I'm going to tell you something. That gold has sentimental value. It belonged to my mother, God rest her soul. Every piece in that bag was hers. You understand what I'm saying?" Solly understood perfectly. Anastasia was telling him that this. And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. This gold was sacred, that if anything happened to it, the consequences would be severe. "I understand, Mr. Anastasia. I'll treat it with the utmost care and respect." "Good, because I'd hate for there to be a misunderstanding." Anastasia left. The 2 big men followed. The bell above the door chimed cheerfully. Solly stood there for a long moment, staring at the leather bag on his counter. $47,000 in gold, 3 weeks to work with it, and a daughter who needed $15,000 for surgery. That night, Solly couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about that bag of gold sitting in his shop safe. He kept thinking about Rebecca's surgery, about the debt collectors who called his house at all hours, about the nursing home threatening to move his mother-in-law to a state facility if he didn't pay. At 3 a.m., his wife Sarah found him sitting at the kitchen table. "You're thinking about that gold," she said quietly. "How did you know?" "Because I know you, and I know that look on your face. Whatever you're thinking, don't." "I'm not thinking anything." "Liar." Sarah sat down across from him. "Solly, we've been married 19 years. I know when you're scheming." "I'm not scheming. I'm just doing the math." "What math?" Solly rubbed his face. "That bag contains about 850 grams of pure gold. At current market rates, that's $47,000. Anastasia wants custom pieces, high-quality 18-karat gold. To make what he's asking for, I need about 600 grams of gold. The other 250 grams, about 14,000 worth, that's excess. And 18-karat gold is only 75% pure. The other 25% is alloy. Copper, silver, zinc, that's standard. That's how you make jewelry durable." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Solly, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that if I used 16-karat instead of 18-karat, Anastasia would never know. 16-karat is 67% gold, 33% alloy. It looks identical, wears almost the same, and it would save me about 80 grams of gold, plus the 250 grams excess. That's 330 grams total, about $17,000. The kitchen was silent. "You want to steal from Albert Anastasia?" Sarah finally said. "I want to borrow from the excess material. He won't notice. Nobody can tell the difference between 16 and 18 karat without testing it, and nobody tests custom jewelry from a trusted jeweler." "Solly, this is insane. This is the Lord High Executioner we're talking about. This is the man who killed Arnold Schuster in broad daylight on a public street just because he didn't like his face. You think he won't notice? You think he won't care? He won't know. And even if he suspected something, what's he going to do? Send his jewelry to a lab? Admit he gave $47,000 in gold to a jeweler and then complained about the quality? He has bigger problems than testing his mother's jewelry." Sarah stood up. "I'm begging you. Don't do this. We'll figure something else out. We'll take a loan, we'll sell the house, we'll do anything, but don't steal from Albert Anastasia." But Solly had already made up his mind. The next morning, Solly started the work. He set up his workshop exactly as he normally would. He laid out all of Anastasia's gold on his bench. He sketched designs for 6 rings, 3 bracelets, 2 necklaces. He calculated the exact amount of gold needed for each piece. Then he made the substitution. Instead of using pure 18-karat gold, he mixed the gold with extra copper and silver to create 16-karat alloy. The difference was subtle. The color was slightly warmer, slightly more reddish, but unless you compared it side by side with true 18-karat, you'd never notice. He worked carefully, methodically. Every piece was crafted to perfection. The rings were engraved with intricate patterns. The bracelets had delicate chains. The necklaces were works of art. This was the best work Solly had ever done, because it had to be. If the craftsmanship was flawless, no one would question the gold content. By the time he finished, Solly had 330 grams of pure gold set aside. He took it to a dealer in the Diamond District, a man named Morris, who asked no questions. Morris paid him $1,600 in cash. Solly deposited $15,000 into his daughter's surgery fund. He paid $500 to the nursing home. He kept $300 for himself. The surgery was scheduled for February 15th. His mother-in-law's room was secure for another 6 months. For the first time in a year, Solly felt like he could breathe. On February 8th, exactly 3 weeks after Anastasia's visit, one of the big men in an overcoat came to collect the jewelry. Solly had it ready. Everything was packaged beautifully in velvet-lined boxes. The big man examined each piece, nodded approvingly, and left without a word. Solly watched him go. He'd done it. He'd pulled it off. Albert Anastasia had his jewelry. Rebecca had her surgery fund. The debt was manageable. Nobody was hurt. Nobody would ever know. For 2 weeks, Solly was right. February 23rd, 1956. Albert Anastasia was in his office at the Warwick Hotel when his jeweler, a man named Giuseppe Todaro, called with a problem. Anastasia had given one of the custom bracelets to his mistress, a showgirl named Donna Marsh. Donna had taken the bracelet to her own jeweler for sizing. That jeweler, being thorough, had tested the gold content. "Mr. Anastasia," Giuseppe said carefully, "the bracelet is 16 karat, not 18 karat. Somebody made a substitution." The phone line was silent for a long moment. "You're sure?" "I'm sure. I tested the other pieces you gave me. They're all 16 karat. And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. They used cheaper alloy and kept the difference in gold." Anastasia's voice was very quiet. "How much gold are we talking about?" "Based on the weight of the finished pieces, I'd estimate about 300 to 350 grams, maybe 17,000 worth." "And who did the work?" "Salvatore Brenner, the jeweler on Mulberry Street." Another long silence. Then, "Thank you, Giuseppe. Send me your bill." Anastasia hung up the eater's phone. He sat very still for several minutes, thinking. Then he called Carlo Gambino. Carlo Gambino arrived at the Warwick within an hour. He found Anastasia sitting behind his desk, staring at the velvet boxes containing his mother's jewelry. "Carlo, I need your opinion on something," Anastasia said. "I gave a jeweler 47,000 in gold. He was supposed to make it into custom pieces, 18 karat gold, top quality. Instead, he used 16 karat and pocketed about 17,000 worth of my mother's gold." Gambino sat down. "You're sure?" "My jeweler tested it, all of it. Every piece is 16 karat. "And you want to know what to do about it?" "I know what to do about it. I want to know if I'm thinking clearly or if I'm being emotional." Gambino lit a cigar. "Tell me what you're thinking." "I'm thinking this jeweler, this Salvatore Brenner. He looked at gold that belonged to my mother and saw an opportunity. He thought he could cheat me. He thought I wouldn't notice. He thought I wouldn't care. And that, disrespect, Carlo, that's something I can't let go." "So you want him dead?" "I want him to understand that you don't steal from Albert Anastasia. I want everyone who hears about this to understand. But here's my question. Do I make it public or private?" Gambino considered this. "What's the jeweler situation? Family? Debts?" "I had someone look into it. He's got a wife, 2 daughters. One of the daughters just had major surgery. Cost about 15,000. His mother-in-law's in an expensive nursing home. He's been drowning in debt for months. So he stole out of desperation, not greed. Does that matter? It matters for the message. If you kill him, people will say he was desperate. He had no choice. Anastasia was unreasonable. But if you destroy his business, make him an example, let him live with the consequences, that's a different message." Anastasia nodded slowly. "Keep talking." "You want people to know that stealing from you has consequences. Death is quick. Pain lasts longer. Humiliation lasts longest. You blow up his shop, you take away his livelihood, you let him watch everything he built turn to ash. And you do it in a way that sends a message to everyone in Little Italy. This is what happens when you disrespect Albert Anastasia. And we let him live? We let him live, because dead men can't tell the story, but a broken jeweler who lost everything, that story gets told forever." Anastasia smiled. "Carlo, this is why you're the smart one." The contract went to a demolition expert named Frank Boom Boom Balistrieri. Frank had worked construction before the war, learned about explosives in the Army Corps of Engineers, and now specialized in very precise destruction. Anastasia's instructions were specific. Destroy Sally's jewelry exchange completely, but leave everything around it untouched. No collateral damage, no civilian casualties. This was surgery, not war. Frank spent 2 days surveilling Mulberry Street. He studied the building structure, the neighboring shops, the apartments above. He calculated blast radius, explosive type, placement, timing. On the night of March the 2nd, Frank broke into Sally's shop at 11:30 p.m. The lock was cheap. Frank had it open in 45 seconds. Inside, he placed 4 shaped charges along the shop's support structure. C4 explosive, military grade, stolen from an army depot in New Jersey. Each charge was designed to direct the blast inward and downward, collapsing the storefront while leaving the surrounding structure intact. Frank set the timer for 2:47 a.m. That gave him 3 hours to get clear. It also meant the explosion would happen in the dead of night when Mulberry Street was empty. No witnesses, no casualties, just property destruction. Precise, professional. At 2:46 a.m., Solly Brenner was asleep in his house in Bensonhurst, dreaming about his daughter's successful surgery. At 2:47 a.m., his jewelry shop ceased to exist. March 3rd, 7:15 a.m. Solly got the call from his neighbor, Tony, owned the bakery 2 doors down. "Solly, you need to get down here. Something happened to your shop." "What do you mean something happened?" "Just get down here." Solly drove to Mulberry Street in a daze. When he turned the corner and saw the wreckage, he had to pull over. He thought he was going to vomit. The entire storefront was gone. His display windows, his front door, his sales counter, all of it was now a pile of rubble and twisted metal. But the destruction was precise. Tony's bakery stood untouched. The shoe repair shop on the other side was fine. The apartments above had some broken windows, but were structurally sound. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a gas leak. This was a message. Solly stood on the sidewalk, watching the firefighters sift through the debris, and he knew exactly who had sent it. The police came. Detective Michael Brennan, no relation, asked the obvious questions. "Mr. Brenner, do you have any enemies? Anyone who might want to harm your business?" Solly thought about Albert Anastasia. He thought about 330 grams of stolen gold. He thought about what would happen if he told the truth. "No, detective, I can't think of anyone. This wasn't an accident. This was professional, military-grade explosive, shaped charges. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing." "I understand. If you think of anything, anyone who might have a grudge, you call me immediately." "I will." But they both knew he wouldn't. 2 hours later, a black Cadillac pulled up. One of Anastasia's men, one of the big guys in overcoats, got. And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Got out. He walked over to where Solly was standing, handed him an envelope, and walked away without a word. Solly opened the envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper with a handwritten note. "You stole $17,000 from me. I destroyed $50,000 of your business. Consider it a lesson in respect. Don't ever work in this neighborhood again. A.A." Solly's hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped the paper. He'd lost everything. His shop, his equipment, his inventory, his reputation. The insurance company would investigate. They'd find evidence of explosives. They'd deny the claim. He was ruined. And the worst part was knowing that Anastasia could have killed him, should have killed him. But instead, he'd chosen something crueler, letting him live with the consequences. By noon, everyone in Little Italy knew what happened. The story spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Solly Brenner had cheated Albert Anastasia. He'd swapped 18-karat gold for 16-karat. He'd stolen from the Lord High Executioner. And Anastasia had sent a message that everyone understood. "You don't steal from me and live to profit from it." The aftermath was brutal. Solly tried to rebuild. He took out loans, rented a smaller space in Brooklyn. But the story followed him. No one in the jewelry trade would work with him. Suppliers refused his business. Customers stayed away. By 1957, he was bankrupt. His house in Bensonhurst went into foreclosure. His wife, Sarah, had to take a job as a seamstress to support the family. His daughters grew up knowing their father was the man who stole from the mob and lost everything. Solly died in 1974 at 63 years old, working as a watch repairman in a department store in Queens. He never owned another jewelry shop. He never worked with gold again. The story of Solly Brenner became a legend in New York's underworld, not because of what happened to him, but because of what didn't happen. Albert Anastasia didn't kill him. He destroyed him. And that destruction lasted 18 years, until Solly died, broken and poor. Carlo Gambino had been right. Death is quick. Humiliation lasts forever. The jewelry that Solly made, the pieces crafted from 16-karat gold instead of 18-karat, remained in Anastasia's family for decades. Anastasia never wore them, never gave them away. He kept them in a safe as a reminder. This is what betrayal looks like. This is what weakness looks like. This is what happens when you think you can cheat me. In 1957, a year after the explosion, another jeweler in Little Italy tried to shortchange a mob client. He overcharged by $200 on a repair job. Word got back to the client. That jeweler's shop burned down 3 days later. When the police asked if he knew who did it, the jeweler mentioned Solly Brenner's name. "That's what happens when you disrespect them," he said. The detective wrote it down in his report, but no charges were ever filed. Because everyone in Little Italy understood the rules. You could work in the neighborhood, you could make a living, you could serve the mob's legitimate business needs, but you never, ever cheated them. Solly Brenner had learned that lesson at 2:47 a.m. on March 3, 1956, and his demolished shop stood as a monument to that lesson for everyone else. What most people don't know is that Albert Anastasia visited the site of Solly's destroyed shop exactly once. It was March 5, 1956, 2 days after the explosion. Parked his Cadillac across the street and sat there for 10 minutes, just looking at the rubble. One of his associates, a man named Anthony Coppola, was with him. "Boss, you think he learned his lesson?" Anastasia was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell." He said something that Coppola remembered for the rest of his life. He'll spend every day for the rest of his life thinking about those 330 grams of gold. Every time he sees jewelry, every time he passes a shop, every time someone mentions my name, he'll remember. That's not a lesson. That's a life sentence. Anastasia started the car and drove away. He never spoke about Solly Brenner again, but he didn't need to. The message was already out there, carved into the wreckage of a jewelry shop on Mulberry Street. Respect isn't negotiable. Loyalty isn't optional. And if you think you can cheat Albert Anastasia, even once, even for a good reason, you better be prepared to lose everything. Because death would be a mercy, and Albert Anastasia didn't deal in mercy. He dealt in lessons, and the lesson of Solly Brenner was one that New York's underworld never forgot.